Hello! Alright, so I've been using the Scholar, using the Bagcraft ability, and I've been doing runs with pots only. There's been a lot of questions regarding, I guess, how I do the run, so I'll try to break some of it down. Okay. First off, this is a question that's pretty common, is how many slots you get, how many pouches do you get, you know, is it 5, 6, 8, or 9? Well, I'll break it down. Okay. So right now, I'm just going to use this. No relics are equipped. When you pause it, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you get a total of 4 pouches. Now also, the other thing with Scholar, just for him, is when you equip an item, he gets double what normal characters get. So if you get fire pots, for instance, here I'll show you. You know, so this will answer this question, because I think people have asked, like, why do you have 4 items? Why do you have 2? All right. First, well, I'll use a different character. You know, just anybody. All right. We're gonna look for fire pots. Okay, so normal characters can carry a max of 2 fire pots per pouch, per slot, whatever you want to call it. When you are the Scholar, he has the unique passive where he can carry more. He doesn't get an extra pouch. He still has no pouches. I think that was a question as well, too. He still only has 4. So let's put a bunch of fire pots on him now. Alright, so we're the Scholar. He can carry 4 pots per pouch, per slot. So, he can carry double the items that regular characters can work. I think that this is part of his Bagcraft ability, basically. You know, upper left, Bagcraft, carry more items, level items by using them. You know, it says right there. You know, you can come to the sparring grounds. You know, kind of explains it right there. You know, so again, you carry items, and you can level them up. Alright. We'll go back to the pouches now. Alright. So, you start with 4 pouches. When you do an expedition... Alright. Alright. So normally during an expedition, if you go to a regular merchant, you know, he has an icon on the menu. I don't know why it doesn't show up here, but, you know, around the castle there's normal merchants, and, you know, there's normal merchants at, you know, camps. You know, camps, scamps, castle, you know, magic castles, all that other crap. So anyways, if you find a regular merchant, as I like to call it, you can buy an extra pouch, and now you'll have 5 pouches. So, you know, if you go to the regular merchant, you buy the small pouch from him, you'll now have 5 pouches. So now you'll be able to carry another 4 pots, at least for the Scholar. Now the other, so that's 5 small pouches right now. Now sometimes on your expeditions, it doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen quite a bit. If you look at this icon here, you know, it looks kind of like, I guess, a barn and 2 houses close together. This is called the Special Merchant. If you go to this icon, or if you just go to this place, there is a merchant there that also sells a small pouch. So if you can buy it from him, you now have access to 6 pouches total. In the game itself, you can get a max of 2 pouches. That is, if this merchant is in the expedition. He's not always there. But you can always get at least one pouch from a regular merchant. So if you go to a camp, castle, blah, 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 that's where the normal merchants tend to be. You can always get one from them, always. So you can always have a total of 5. If you get the pouch from the special merchant, you can always get a total of 6, as long as you buy from the normal merchant. So, you can buy a pouch here from a regular merchant, and you can buy another pouch from the special merchant. So that's a total of 6 pouches. So normally you'd have 6 slots down there. You'd have 2 extra slots. You'd be able to carry an extra 8 fire bombs. Alright. Let's go over some of the relic setups. People seem to have a lot of questions about the relic setups. Alright, so let's go. Let's see something here. Let's just use this, for example. Alright. Okay. So, if you want to get more pouches, what you do is you go to the relic setup, go to select effect, scroll all the way down to starting item. Alright, so here's the items that you can start with. So for runs, like I'm doing, you can actually start the runs with magic pots, fire pots, lightning, holy. And he'll carry about 4. What is this other shit? Okay. So this, at the very bottom, it's at the very bottom, basically. Small pouch in possession at start of expedition. So that means that if you equip this, you can now look for relics that say small pouch in possession. If you do that, notice now I have 5 slots. So that is the other way you can equip pouches. Let's keep going. Let's equip this. Now we have 6 slots. We go to the setup again. Small pouch for each relic. Let's do it one more time. So, we have 3 slots that all have small pouch in possession at start of expedition. So now, I have a total of 7 slots. So, if you do these relics in combination with buying small pouches from merchants in the actual expeditions, you can have a total of 8 pouches. I mean, technically you could probably have a total of 9 if there's a special merchant, but I think that it caps you at 32. I've tried to buy 9, but it doesn't let you. It just kind of limits you, at least from what I know of. So yes, the total amount of pouches you can get is 8. So, from relics alone, you can get an additional 3 small pouches. So, relic 1, relic 2, relic 3. So, that's how you get the extra pouches. That's how I'm getting to 7 and 8 pouches, is you have to use relics that give you a small pouch, and then you have to buy pouches from merchants in the actual game. You combine them together, and then you get 8. I haven't done Deep of Night yet, but, actually, you know what? We'll do a little experiment. So now we have 8 slots. Let's see if we can do 9. So now we have 4 relics that have that. Let's try one more. And look. So I have... That's 1, 2, 3. 4, 5. So I have 5 extra small pouches on top of his regular 4 pouches. So, you can only carry up to 8. That's the max. So hopefully that explains how I'm getting, you know, all these pouches. You know, I'm getting 7 and 8, and everyone's like, what? You know, you only get 4 or 5. What's going on? Well, hopefully this explained it. Hopefully I explained this part pretty well. So yeah, I'll say it one more time. If you want to get more pouches, you got to equip them with the relics, and then you just got to buy them from merchants in the game to get the most pouches as possible, if that's your goal. All right. If I'm doing a run where I know fire pot damage is good against the final Night Lord, I'll run a build like this, where it's improved throwing pot damage. Well, actually, that's a mistake right there. Let's change that. And actually, we'll do a little experiment. We're going to go to the sparring grounds. Consumables. Okay. All right. Try adjusting it to level 1. So that was level 15, by the way. I don't think this really matters. Wait a minute. How do I'm trying to reset it. Yeah, just give me a second here. Hopefully he's back to level 1 with his pot, so now... Let's try this again. Okay, yeah, so fire pots are back to level 1. Alright. Let's try at level 1. Let's see how much damage we do. 138. So, let's see if leveling up increases the damage. It does not. So, if anyone wants to do this run, keep that in mind, that levels don't really matter in this one. They don't matter at all. In most of my runs, I might be like level 8 to 12. It's more for survivability rather than trying to increase the damage, because you can't, as I just tested here. So that's interesting. You know, leveling up doesn't seem to boost the damage. I know in the previous Elden Ring game, I think when you leveled up Dex and Strength, that made the damage higher. And usually when you just level up in general, those stats go up. But I'm not quite sure if that works in Elden Ring. You know, maybe I could test Dexterity and Strength to see if it goes up. However, what I will test is improved pot damage. Well, really quickly, we're at level 2 now. You know, it's doing 138. So now at level 2, 234. Alright, now we've reached level 3. Let's throw it now. $339. So each level goes up by about 100. Very, very, very close. Little high, little low, but roughly, you know, about an extra 100 damage. Yeah, so it reminds me a lot of a volcano pot from the other Elden Ring game, you know, the first Elden Ring game, the fire kind of spreads around. So when you're fighting bosses, you really got to make sure that like their feet are like basically on top of the fire, because if you just kind of hit them and they run at you, you know, they'll take extra damage if their fire is lingering under them. So that's how you can get massive damage with the fire pots, and you know, the key to becoming a nuclear scholar. All right. So now we see what improved hot damage does. All right. So what we do is, it is under, I think it's attack power. Okay. So if you want to increase the damage by quite a bit, find a relic that has improved throwing pot damage right here. So it's under attack power. It's down quite a ways. It's like fourth one down. So click it. All right. Just gonna put them on. I'm not going to do this, but I'll test this in a little bit. Yeah, I just want to strictly do improved pot damage. I don't want any other relic effects kind of messing with it. I get lost a lot. We'll just teleport. Alright. Go back to consumables. Fire pots are the most common pot in the game. You can buy them infinitely at merchants and special merchants. So if you're going to do this kind of run, you'll probably be using fire pots a lot. Kind of depends. But anyways. It was doing about 354, but with improved throwing pot damage, now we're hitting it for about 509. That's a big increase. That's more than 100. I've kind of read I think the wikis, and I think they say that every relic that has improved throwing pot damage does about 20% more damage per pot, which is the same as the companion jar talisman, I believe. They also do 20%. So, in your expeditions, you kind of have to decide, do you want to have really powerful pots, but do you have... let me try to rephrase that again. You kind of have to decide, should I carry 32 pots that are weaker, or should I carry less pots, but they're stronger pots? Because if you go with improved throwing damage, you can only get a total of 6. But again, if you fill the slots out with small pouches, then you can get more than that. You can get up to 8. You know, it kind of depends on the bosses. For some normal runs, I would just do like all pouches and I just focus on ammo. But then other runs, the improved throwing pot damage with less pots, you know, the damage mattered more. I mean, that's, you know, it is what it is. And that's kind of what I run into, at least. All right. Oh. His analysis tool. So you have to hold Y and press L2. All right. So he'll analyze them. Now what you want to do is press L2 once the red circle is complete. And what it does is it applies a debuff for 1 hit. You throw the fire pot now. $745. I haven't seen any official sources, but I did some calculations, and it's about 40% more damage. I think like 41, 42, but about 40, they say. So, this is without analyzing it. And now we try to analyze it. You know, when the red circle goes around like a clock and completes itself, again, hit left L2. You know, have the debuff now, which is about 40%. Lob the pot. Well, 745. It's still a lot. Now, the risky part about this is when you fight the bosses, is the bosses will try to attack you and charge you, because a lot of people have been asking me, like, just keep analyzing, keep analyzing. I mean, also, you know, if you're far away, it's a lot slower. You know, it takes longer to charge if you're farther away, but you're at a safer distance. But if you're closer, you can charge it faster. But again, if you're closer, you know, there's more of a risk that the boss will hit you while you're in the middle of this animation. So usually to get this to work, you know, you might have to charge it to there and then like dodge out of the way if the boss is charging at you, and then just go right back to it. You know, dodge, go right back to it. You know, then you do it. That's kind of how I would use the tool. I'm playing solo. You know, if you're on a trio, you have two players that are kind of distracting. But, like, when I fight Gaping Jaw, for example, he'll eventually run at me while I'm in the middle of analyzing it. So, against certain bosses, you know, very aggressive bosses, it's very hard to get this one off, especially if you're close. You know, you're really risking leaving yourself kind of wide open. You know, I think it's, you know, I think the full analysis itself, you know, we can do a little test actually. Let's do a little test. All right, up close. 1, 2, 3, 4. Up close seems about 4 seconds. Now let's go very far away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's the downside. You know, on one hand, you could stay further away from the boss, but it takes about 10 seconds when you're very far away, and takes about 4 seconds when you're close. So, you know, that explains Scholar's unique ability. You know, it doesn't do any direct damage, but again, it just makes you do more damage on the next hit, and it's only for one hit. You know, remember, without it, you know, it's almost, you know, an extra 200 damage for one hit. Okay, let's talk about his analysis ability. So, the analysis ability basically links all the bosses together. So, for instance, if I attack just one enemy, the ones close to it will also take damage. I think I've read somewhere that I think they take about 20%. I haven't really looked much into it. Let's try throwing a pot. Oops. So, you know, I think it's an extra 20. I mean, it's still very useful, especially against groups, regardless. It's a great ability. It does not do any damage, so it's perfect for a run like this. You know, he is basically built for this run, in my opinion. You know, he has a special that applies a debuff and a buff, and then he has an ultimate that just links all enemies together, and you hit one, and all of them take damage, or at least the other enemies take a portion of the damage that of the enemy you're hitting. You know, you need to have them fairly close together, but he still has a pretty wide range. You know, this one is very useful against bosses like Gladius when he splits into 3 dogs. You know, if you hit just one dog and the other dogs are close by, they'll also take some of the damage, and that's the method I use to beat them. I try to get the 3 of them close together, and you know, basically you know, the communion. I did the same thing also against Marius, Augur. I had his jellyfish kind of grouped together, and then I would just throw 1 or 2, and then, you know, all of them would take damage, and all of them would explode, and they would all go hit Augur, basically, and did tons of damage. I mean, the fire pot alone, too, if you throw it like this, right in the middle, you know, it has quite the reach. You know, it has a big radius. So, you know, if you're not using Analyze or Communion, you know, try, when you're fighting just regular enemies, you know, soldiers, stuff like that, try to get them to always be close together, because you might just be able to kill maybe 6 at once with 1 pot if they're all grouped close together. Just a little tip. I wish I could show the talismans. I don't think you can actually show them, but let's see. But where is, yeah, okay, there we go. I'm going to show you the incantations that can make it potentially more powerful. And then, interestingly enough, all right, we'll try just a regular pot. All right, so this is at level 1. We'll test the damage one more time. We got 509. Okay, we got up to 614. I think it's about, I believe that the flame tier has always been about 15% extra fire damage. So this can make your fire pot strong. I think it's the same way with lightning and magic. I think it's about 15%. That's how it was in Elden Ring. And just Elden Ring. No, not Nightreign. Test it again. Alright, let's drink it again. Because right now we are level 2. Now it's level 3. Whoa. It's not that much more, it seems. I think we're hitting, I think it was like 605. We were in the 600s, but anyways. If you level up the Physique by just drinking it, that will also give you more damage. Unfortunately, in expeditions, it's kind of rare to find some of these things. It's especially rare to find the flaming tier. I think like the most common one I run into is, I don't know, it's not the flame tier, I'll tell you that. It's like keep your runes or something, like the Twitch tier or whatever shit. I don't know. So yeah, interestingly enough, to further your damage, yeah, like I said, you can level up. I'm going to show another interesting thing with the Blood Boil Aromatic. Let's see if it increases damage. It does. Let's level it up again. Alright, we are level 3 now. So check this out. There we go. Look at that damage, man. Oops, I messed that up. It almost acts like an analyze ability. Basically, it'll make you hit the enemy once for a lot more damage if you have your Blood Boil Aromatics up to level 3. I was just kind of messing around one day and figured that out. So throw a normal one. Alright, we got 692. Let's try this now, let's see. $1,045. Back to a regular. Damn, it's like an extra 500 damage. Oh, you know what? I think some stuff ran out. But anyways, the point being, whether you use Blood Boil Aromatic or Analyze, I don't know, if I were to guess, well actually, Alright, let's do a little test. Try to see how much damage we do with Analyze, and then I'm going to compare it to a Blood Boil Aromatic. $723. Hopefully this resets it. Still there. Debuff already. Okay, there we go. We're level 3. Alright, for one hit. Oh. It didn't actually work. Wonder what happened. working before. That is strange. It would almost appear that you have to use the Blood Boil Aromatic a few times, because it's at level 3. Or you just gotta be really up close, I guess. I don't know. That's weird. Let's try up close. And then we try the Blood Boil Aromatic. This again. I guess it only works if you're up close. I mean, I guess the fire is like kind of spreading around closer. All right, but that's still a really big increase in damage for one hit. Go back to analyze. So the Blood Boil Aromatica can actually outdamage it. The only downside is that if you put Blood Boil Aromatics in there, it kind of takes up all your slots, you know, when you could be having pots. Same with the Flame Tier. But if you want to strengthen if you want to get your fire pots to do more damage, these are two things right here that you can use to get it there. So, you know, Fire Tier, and then the Blood Boil Aromatic. Now spells. Golden Vow. It's kind of tough to find this spell. I mean, it shows up sometimes, but this can also buff the damage. It buffs damage all around the board, whether it's magic, items, or weapons. Yeah. In Elden Ring, not Nightreign, I believe Golden Vow was about an extra 15%. I could be wrong, though. It might be different in this game. But, you know, we hit it for like 655 when we were doing 523 before. Alright, another buff is Flame Grant Me Strength. It gives 20% extra damage to anything with fire. And fire pots are made of fire. Actually, so you can actually stack Golden Vow with Flame Grant Me Strength, but I just want to show you Flame Grant Me Strength. All right. All right, we're just going to try Golden Vow again. I mean, I'm doing this for my sake as well, because I want to know what strengthens the pots the most, because some bosses have a lot of health, especially if I try Deep of Night. Okay, so Flame Grant Me Strength out-damages it by a little bit, so I think it's 20% for Flame Grant Me Strength and 15% for Golden Vow. You can combine the two. Golden Vow lasts about 1 minute and 30 seconds, and I believe Flame Grant Me Strength is about 30. But let's test the damage now. Yeah. So if you combine Golden Vow with Flame Grant Me Strength, that also can increase your damage. Alright, the other spell is called Howl of Shibari. So what it does is it strengthens all damage around the board to about, I think it's 25%. It causes a debuff on you that makes you weaker and you take more damage. I believe it lasts about 40 seconds or 45. But let's try throwing in a pot. It outdamages Flame Grant Me Strength by a little bit. But yeah, in base Elden Ring, I think it was 25%. So you can use this so you can use this spell also to buff. You can also combine this with Golden Vow. Let's see if we can get to 700. Okay, 734. If you use Flame Grant Me Strength, it's going to cancel Howl of Shibari. I think it's something with body buffs and aura buffs. Yeah, so you do a little bit more. Yeah, so you got like 706 versus 734. So, these are the spells that you want to get if you can. There are also weapons you can get that also buff. Although these ones might be kind of rare. Where is the commander? Where is it? Oh. Where is Commander Standard? Where is it? Ah, there it is. And then finally, Jellyfish Shield. Alright. We actually need to level up to use these. So let's level up. Go to 10. Alright. In base Elden Ring, I believe the Jellyfish Shield did an extra 15% damage. I think it got nerfed to 10, but we'll find out. Alright, Jellyfish Shield. It's pretty good. I think that's, if I were to guess, maybe around like 15%, maybe? Wow. Okay, we had 600 there. Okay. Jellyfish Shield is actually a decent buff. So if you come across this, this is another decent weapon to buff the damage. And we'll test again. I mean, maybe there's a mathematician out there that can calculate the exact percentages. You know, if you want to, just leave it down in the comments, I guess. Alright. It's interesting because you can de-equip the Jellyfish Shield, and you still get the buff. In base Elden Ring, you always had to have the shield out. It couldn't be on your back. You just always had to have it in one of your hands. Like, you could carry it like this to work. And then the only other way was carrying the shield like this. Like, if you put it on your back, the buff would go away. It would just disappear. So that's interesting that you can do that in this game. Alright. Commander Standard. Or actually, hold on. test without. Let's test it out. So yeah, 509, 530. Commander Standard. $614. Alright, so I believe that this is called an aura buff. And so is Golden Vow. So let's test Golden Vow. So now, Golden Vow basically cancels out Commander Standard, but let's see the damage. Alright, 589. Alright, back to Commander Standard. Alright, so Commander Standard does, I believe, about 20% extra damage all around the board, and Golden Vow is about 15%. So, if you had to choose between the two, go with the Commander Standard. I mean, they're both very tough to find, but yeah, I believe they're called aura buffs, and you can't stack them together. So choose the Commander Standard with the 20% more damage instead of the Golden Vow, which is 15, if you run into those items. And then as far as what's called body buffs now, Flame Grant Me Strength is one, which is 20%. Where is Hal Shibari? Where'd it go? Where are you? Hardest part of the game is just finding the right spell. Ah, there we go. So Flame Grant Me Strength is 20% more fire damage, and also I think like physical damage, I believe. So very good with fire pots. Howl of Shibari, like I said before, it's an extra 25%. So if you had to choose between these two spells, go with Howl of Shibari. I'd say that Flame Grant Me Strength is a little bit more common than Howl of Shibari. Howl of Shibari is kind of rare, but that's the best body buff you could get. I mean, the sole exception would be a Blood Boil Aromatic. That does about 30%. Test. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to show you something here. You know, body buff. Okay, so this is also a body buff, I believe. So if you drink this, it will cancel Howl Shibari. It'll just, you know, turn it off. You'll get the effects of the Blood Boil Aromatic. So we take it in. Kind of weird. I guess you really do have to be up close. So we got 803. Okay, 668. A Blood Boil Aromatic at level 3. And for some reason, it only seems to work when you're kind of close to the enemy. Doesn't seem to work from a distance. That's kind of weird. But let's try it. It does substantially more damage than Hal Shibari. Back to Blood Boil Aromatic. Yeah. I mean, if I were to guess, if it's... I think if at level 1, a Blood Boil Aromatic does an extra 30% more damage, I believe. Although, I think it's a physical as well, so I'm not completely sure. If you get it to level 3, though, it becomes more powerful. It seems like maybe you get a 35% increase or maybe a 40%. 45? I'm not completely sure. It is quite a bit. I mean, look at that damage. Okay. So as far as body buffs go, Blood Boil Aromatic is the best one, if you're close to the opponent, I guess. Otherwise, go with Howl of Shibari. Alright. The last thing I would look for, but this is even more rare, is the Soul Stifler. I believe that this debuffs enemies by about 15%. Let's give it a shot. Yeah, so that one's not a lot, but it's, you know, let's do a little test, actually. Hit it again. And let's try Sculler's Analyze. Okay, that's a good chunk of damage. So they do stack together. I was wondering if Analyze was a body buff or an aura buff, but it's its own thing, apparently. So you can put debuffs on here. You know, I think this is one of the best ones you can use. There are some others. So, yeah. You know, all the weapons and spells that can buff them. Oh, talismans. So, during expeditions, you run across these scarab beetles, If you kill them, they drop talismans, and they can increase your damage, potentially, if you find the right talismans. Maybe I can find them from some of my expeditions. Hold on. No. No. Oh. Here's a good one. Ritual Sword Talisman. Improved attack power at full HP. This is a good one to run across. It's not the best. Oh. I didn't know it did that. I didn't know it showed your relic setup. Anyways. So that's a good one to get to increase your damage. It's got to be here somewhere. Ah! Here's probably the best talisman. The Companion Jar. Improves throwing pots by 20%. So, this is definitely probably the best one you can get for pots in particular. You know, if you're using perfumes and other things, they kind of have like the same deal. They have a pot, they have a talisman that buffs it. But this is probably the best one. For, you know, it's all jar damage, by the way. You know, ritual is also all. So, best one to find is this. You know, if I am looking for a pot, or sorry, a talisman, this is what I usually aim for. Companion Jar in this challenge. And the last one would be the it's called the Fire Scorpion Charm, and what it does is it gives you improved fire attack power. Right now we're looking at the lightning one, but the Fire Scorpion looks just like the lightning. It's just that it's more red and orange. You take 3% extra damage, but it doesn't really it doesn't feel that bad. Like, I think it's way worth it to get it for the damage. That extra 15% at the expense of taking, you know, 3% yourself. Ah, okay, here we go. I'm sure there's a better way to show talismans, I guess, but this is what you want to find. So, Fire Scorpion, 15%. You want to have Fire Scorpion Charm, and you want to have Companion Jar. That's an extra 35% damage all around the board. So that should be your talisman setup, you know, if you want to do this run. Once again here. Okay. I think this is the last thing now. I know I've been talking quite a bit, but all right. Weapons come with passives. At the bottom you'll see that it says like improve incantations, improve magic attack power. If you find this, you know, if you find a passive at the bottom, it can be on any weapon. If you're using magic pots, it increases your magic pot damage by 6%. So, if you're using magic pots, this is a good passive. You know, sometimes it comes in 9% or 12% or 14 or 15. You know, this is just more defense. You know, defense is also pretty good. You know, it can be awkward with the timing of the pots. You know, improved lightning power. If you're using lightning pots, for example, you would do 9% more lightning damage. continuous hit point recovery, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah. There's also ones with improved attack power at full HP, so this is kind of like the sword talisman. You want to pick these up again if you want to increase your damage. You know, this one does 10% at full health. You know, I think in this run, not a lot. Yeah, improved fire attack power increases the damage of your fire pots. So keep an eye out for these passives. I'm not sure if there is an improved throwing pot damage. I'm not completely sure. All right. So I think that's all. I mean, I think that was kind of a long explanation, but hopefully it answers a lot of questions. You know, I don't usually do kind of commentary speaking videos. I usually just kind of record and just kind of write down explanations in the info. But we'll see how this does. You know, there's a lot of questions about this challenge, you know, so I just felt it was easiest to kind of address it in this kind of format. So, I'll see you next time. I still got to take down Gaping Jaw. I got to take down Dreglord. And then also the Balancers. Deep of Night, Depth 5, I might try, because you can get an extra 3 relics to kind of buff your improve hot damage more. So maybe that'll come as well. So until then, take care.